Now then, right, what'll I do again? I'm wiping cake from my face because I may or may not have had a bit of a, this is that cake that we had because we made a mini fin, if you remember rightly, in one of the last videos, and I'm recording this the following morning. It'll be weeks before you see it, but it's very nice as this cake, and I've got a bit, so it's anyway, welcome to Shedlock 2000's Land Rover channel-y thing. Like I mentioned in the video where I thanked everybody for tuning in and subscribing, I'm actually not entirely sure how this has ever happened, so I always feel a bit odd in saying welcome to the channel, because I'm just a guy talking about Land Rovers, really. But anyway, it's turned into being a bit of a thing, hasn't it? For no apparent reason, I suppose, other than, well, I guess what I'm doing is useful to folks. So, anyway, with that in mind, he says, I've come out because we're selling our travel trailer, our caravan. There's a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons is because Finn's awful on fuel, and we towed our caravan twice last year and we only got 6 miles to the gallon out of it, which is disastrous. My L322 with a 5-litre supercharged engine in it, we used to tow the caravan regularly with that, and we get 11 to 14 miles to the gallon, even in the winds here in southern Alberta. But Finn's just disaster. So that's one of the reasons, and the other reason is because Taryn started a master's this year, and I'm meant to be finishing up my PhD, but the chance of that's not going to happen very soon. Too many jobs. Anyway, Taryn's starting a master's, so we can't actually spend a lot of time away this year. We can only have a couple of weekends away. Normally we would have jingled over to Blighty to see the parents, but of course COVID has meant that we can't do that. So if we can't sort of have a long block away, we're just going to struggle to take the trailer anywhere, and that's the same for next year, because her master's is 2 years, 2 years long, and there's a bit of difficulty finding caravan-related spots here because our delightful government have closed down some of our parks, caravan parks and national parks, because, let me think of it, well, because they're idiots. And they've, I was being political, did you see that? I try not to do that, but like stupid is as stupid does, if you see what I mean sometimes. Anyway, so there's fewer parks that you can actually register at, and because nobody else can travel either, of course, the demand on what there is massive. It's huge, and it's very difficult to find a parking spot. So we sort of give up really a bit, and we know this delightful couple who wants to take our ROG pod, so we've sort of let them basically. And before it goes, or before the ROG pod goes, what I wanted to do was just connect it up to the Land Rover, because a gentleman reached out to me last night on Facebook and asked me for some advice on towing with the Defender, and so I answered a few questions, and then it came to my mind that it would probably be a good thing if I made a video, so I'm going to. So that's the R-Pod. It's a cute little travel trailer. They're very, very good, actually. I quite like them. There are a few downsides to them, but broadly speaking, it's as good as any you can find, and you'll notice that this is what we call the old river edition, so it's up on suspension a little bit, meaning we can take it to some of the sites that are a little bit harder to get at, if you see what I mean. And there's Finn at the side of it, and we're going back, obviously we're going, where's my finger, we're going back that onto this and connect it all up. But I wanted just very quickly have a chat while it's backed up this way and talk to you about the hitches. This is a Pintle Edge, and you put your tow rope or tow strap through it, and then when you lock this down and you pop your pin through, it's locked, it won't ever come off. Now there's lots of different, there are newer modern versions of this with just little shackles coming out the back of them, and that obviously saves a lot of space. And I carry mine, actually, I have got one, carry it in pannier. But anyway, this is a Pintle Edge, and and that's got the bigger ball in it, so I can tow North American trailers. In North America, we have two ball sizes, 2 inch and 2 5/16 or something. And I think there's a smaller one as well. But so this is the larger one that I use for like tipping trailers and all that kind of stuff. If I need to borrow one or use one. And the mount here in North America on quite a good design really, but the mount here on is a sort of a receiver. They call it a receiver hitch, and so you can slide this whole affair in with this pin and then lock it in place. The downside to it is there's a lot of slop, and this here is actually a piece of plastic packing that I use because otherwise it jumps up and down, because there's only this pin holding it and you get a lot of place. Anyway, this is quite a short receiver hitch, what they call a ball mount. This whole bit here is the ball mount, and this one is adjustable. It goes up and down. As you can see, there are actually holes in here which you probably can't see because it's full of junk, but there's holes there and you can sort of adjust the whole thing up and down. But I've had to bring mine out here because of this wheel. So when I come back here, you'll see that in order to get anything on, it has to come out quite a long way, and that puts quite a lot of pressure on that receiver hitch, which is not something I'm a big fan of. And that's particularly annoying when you start backing it into North American trailers, but I'll talk to you about that later on. Anyway, one of the benefits of these types of hitches is that you can take them off quite easily and you can replace them with a different hitch. So this is the chap that I use on my caravan. Now this I think is a smaller ball. This is a 2-inch ball, and this is for the smaller caravan. And this little ball at the side of it is for your stabilizer bar. Now this is called a weight distribution hitch, but the weight distribution part fastens to here. Now we don't use those on Land Rovers, and the reason we don't use them on Land Rovers is because Land Rovers have air suspension with this intelligent tow assist and intelligent stabilizing of towed vehicles. So the weight distribution part is basically 2 long arms that come off it and fasten around the drawbar of the trailer. And they dangle with chains, and what they do is they sort of make sure that the trailer is pushed onto the ball, if you see what I mean. They sort of pull it down, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but the up and short of it all is that the North American tow vehicle is the pickup truck, and pickup trucks don't actually have very good design when they're empty. So a pickup truck has a very large bed at the back of it, which is useful to be filled with all manner of junk, and the Land Rover of course doesn't, does it? The Land Rover has a body on the back like most SUVs, and away you go. Now the downside to the pickup truck is that in order to get some weight over the axle to give it traction, you have to fill the back up, and if you don't fill the back up, or you're towing with it, you're trying to pull a caravan or a trailer or something like that, then you need the trailer, the drawbar of the trailer, to put that weight onto the tow hitch in order to hold the back axle down, or else it just skips along the road. So North American trailers are designed with comparatively short drawbars. This is a bit of a problem when you tow it with a Land Rover, because as you can imagine, and I'll show you in a second, you'll see this, but if you can imagine that the ball fits somewhere right under that tow hitch, now you've got this gas canister set, this propane tank here, right next to the tyre, and you can't open the door, and that is a bit of a drama. In Australia and Britain, that's less of an issue because tend to have longer drawbars and the gas tends to be buried away in the trailer, but that's not the case here. So this is a design that's been accommodated or designed around the pickup trucks in order to put weight on the back, and the weight distribution system dangles off the front of this off the front of the trailer arm, the trailer drawbar here, to pull it down and pull it onto the hitch, balancing the weight between the trailer and the back of the car. But of course, if you own a Land Rover, you don't need to do that, because the weight on the back of the vehicle is already nicely balanced. You've got proper management system of your suspension. So the Land Rover has air suspension on the back, which is corrected many times a second. The Defender has, what do they call it? Adaptive suspension, which is carbon-filled shock absorbers that harden up as you go around corners, making the ride very smooth and very balanced. And that all works together with your air suspension in the back to control the way the back of the car moves. And it does that when you've got a trailer on. Now, if you go and fasten two big pieces of steel to some chains on the front of your trailer, basically you're telling the car that it's not what the car expected it to be. You're pushing and you're forcing all of the weight of the caravan, not all of it, but some of the weight of the caravan onto that hitch. And you're forcing it to almost bind together with that caravan. That confuses the back of the car, and the sensors that are detecting the movement and your air springs, your adaptive shock absorbers, they're getting the wrong information because it's being loaded up and forced down by the weight distribution on the front of the caravan. Obviously, then what happens is that it doesn't respond properly, and you get all manner of sort of overcorrection or undercorrection, and it just handles like a bag of ferrets, as they say back home, and it's rubbish. So while that weight distribution hitch is a thing in North America for almost all pickup trucks, and you see a lot of folks using them on SUVs with cart springs or coil springs, and they may be helpful there too. On the Land Rover, it's actually negative. Fitting and using a weight distribution hitch stops the vehicle working like it should. It's not recommended by Land Rover. I don't think it's a good idea, and if you wanted to use them, that's up to you, I suppose. But the reason I'm using the weight distribution hitch, why I use the weight distribution hitch, Firthy? If you don't like the weight distribution part, well, you see that this particular thing comes very nicely with this attachment on the end. And that knob there is for this anti-sway bar. Now, an anti-sway bar is a positive thing. This stops the vehicle from swaying. And before the sway happens, it applies a sort of, well, it's continual, but it applies a sort of a brake in between the trailer and the back of the car, and so this fits at an angle which is going to be difficult to recreate. So this fits at a bit of an angle like this to the trailer, and as you put that on, what happens is that as the trailer moves, this moves like this, but this acts as a brake and it stops it from swaying. Now that happens positively. That means that it happens all the time and it stops sway from occurring. Now the Land Rover does have an anti-sway system, and that is detected from the change and shift of weight that the airbags and the suspension feel on the back, because as the trailer starts to move, it applies inertia to the back of the vehicle. The back of the vehicle senses that, and then it will apply brakes and other such technologies in order to reduce that sway. But that's what they call a reactive sort of system. It reacts to the sway rather than sort of anticipates that sway happening. And this doesn't. Well, this, I suppose, this sway bar does anticipate that sway happening in that it sort of physically stops it from happening in the first place. I've just had a bit more cake, which is very nice. Now I'm teaching you off at suck eggs here, but the way to change these these ball mounts here is there's a pin with a locking pin, a clevis pin of some description, or that could be like this, a spring clip, or it could be a pin and lock pin, whatever you got going on. Pull the pin out if you can, and then this affair all slides out. Now remember, I've got this little piece of chalk here, so I'm going to just take this out and put it up there so I remember it, and then slide this out, and then slide this one in. Take your pen, give it a bit of a wipe so it fits in nicely. It's always better to line these holes up if you can first, rather than try and have this pin shoved in where it won't go. And then manoeuvre the pin in. I always have the handly bit on the pin pointing down so it doesn't want to spin. and then I put this on the way up so that the weight of the pin is folding it down and this won't drop out even if it gets caught. But in order to do that, you've got to spin it level, put it in from the wrong way, if that makes sense, from the front of the car. And then spin this one down so the weight holds it down. And if you've got one of these, you can slide it in, give it a bit of a tap with a hammer or something. Just stops it bouncing up and down. For some reason or other, they seem to stay there quite nicely, but you could put an elastic band around it or something, just help it stop bouncing about. It is something I learned about North American trailers. In England, you do chock, but you don't need to because there's an handbrake. But here in America, North America, and Canada and North America, these brakes are electronic, and so the mechanism that puts the brakes on and off is a bunch of basically it's a small electromagnet in the trailer, and as you apply the brake, that sucks the brakes to the drum, and that's what slows it down. But of course, as soon as you disconnect the vehicle, there's no brakes, and so if you don't chock it, it just runs off with itself because there's no mechanism of putting the brakes on, which to my mind is it's a bit wrong somehow. But anyway, that's how it is, isn't it? And that's what we've got to work with. So it's important over here always to chock your trailer because there's no mechanism of stopping it slipping. So when I wind these legs down here so I can get closer to an appropriate height to pull the trailer up, it's not necessarily the case that the traction between that pad and that the jockey wheel or jockey leg or whatever you want to call it, the jack, is enough to stop the trailer from running off. So if you chock it, you don't have that problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop the trailer a bit so that this gap here that you see between the floor and the hitch is not so high, and then I stand more of a chance of backing up with the camera. So I've adapted this here so it moves out of the way. This is a new piece that I made, and I made that bracket because originally it mounted here, but this landing leg's no good there because then you can't open the back door at all. So I moved it to the side, and I've now got this system here which works quite well. So just wind the handle down to lower this, and you should have it roughly about kneecap height, give or take. Everybody's drawbar is different, and everybody's height on the back of the Land Rover needs to be different, but I have it about kneecap height, and that way I know I've got space to get under it, and then I can lower it further down onto me hitch proper. Okay, you can see here that I've got this set up as the Land Rover, for the cameras, and I'm just going to draw it. Well, you can see where I am in relation to the trailer because it shows you there. I had this thing made by my top banana Tim to fit the gimbal, but actually his design's better than mine, so I'm going to fix it because obviously it's a bit twisted, but that's the way the gimbal holds it. Thought the gimbal would help balance it out a bit better, but it does nothing but nod around. Anyway, so you'll see me draw off here. Tyre and the Magnificent is also filming, so I'm going to draw off out here, and then I'm going to put it into towing mode, and you'll see as we can back in front of the trailer, you'll have a better idea of what's going on, assuming I don't draw into any cars while that's happening. So I'm just going to pull in front of the trailer, and then I'm going to switch. It's clever this, isn't it? And then I'm going to just put that into towing, and now you can see we've got my tow hitch there. Let me zoom in a bit. We've got the tow hitch, and as I back up, you'll be able to see more clearly where we're going. So we use this tow function to help identify exactly where you are with the tow ball, and this is the reason that I wanted the trailer lower. Now I've got to tow and heel it a bit here because the throttle response on the Land Rover isn't very good, and you end up jerking around terribly. It's not very good, you can see into it. But now you can see we're manoeuvring this underneath the tow hitch of the trailer, and you want that ball to be pretty much underneath the tow hitch. Now that's about that. and I think that's not far off right. But I'm going to come outside and I'll show you one of the downsides to this particular system as it is designed. Now, what looked like it was right in the camera isn't quite right here, can you see? And the reason for that is because this tow bar hangs out quite a long way, and the camera that is designed to help you with the towing is up here. And so this tow ball is meant to be somewhere about here, roughly here. But if we had it there, you would never be able to open the back door. Can you see how close that is? So I've had to bring this out a little bit, or else we'd never get the back door open at all. And I still need to come back a bit because I'm not underneath the hitch. So let's move back a bit more. Now we know exactly how far we've got, we can move back a bit more. Now you can see here that I want exactly a ball's width, which is 2 inches. In this case, he says trying to hold it together. Now, I'll just pop in and I'll show you another drama. I use an object on the floor in relation to some other object on the Land Rover, like this line here in relation to here, and I make a mental note of where that lines, because that allows me to maneuver the car within that exact 2 inches, because it's hard to gauge any other way. Now the problem that we have is, when we do that with the door open, is what happens. Lots of beeping, lots of banging, and it sticks it in park. So now if I let my foot off the brake, you get this, reselect gear to manoeuvre. The reason you get that is because the door's open, and it won't let you back up with the door open. Now if I close the door and use my window to go up out at that line, my perspective is lost. And so this is one of the annoying things about the new Defender, is that you can't just back it up with the door open. This happened on the change to this new gear stick here. They brought in these rules, so I think with the D5 you don't have that problem. So you can reselect the gear. There we go. Use switch to apply park brake. I don't want to apply park brake, so press the little button to clear it. Re-go with reverse, and again with my foot on the brake. Now I can look at my line to judge exactly 2 inches. Like that. And I've also got a noise from tearing, which helps. But that's all a bit of a manoeuvre just to get this to come back to where you want it to. So now if we look at the camera, you'll see what it looks like now, and we can see it looks a bit like, with this perspective, that the tow bar is too far underneath. But if we come outside, I think we'll probably find it spot on. So you can see now that I'm still a little bit further forward than I needed to be, but as I raise the suspension, that will pull the ball into the hitch on the trailer. So I'll just open the door now. And one of the problems you have with doing so is that you only have that much to move the tyre, which only allows you that much to get into the car. Now in here, as you've seen before, I'm sure everybody knows about this, there are controls here to adjust the height of the rear end. And so I just reach in and I pop that up a little bit, and you can see it's pulled the trailer forwards, and now it's in the right position. You can lock that hitch in place like that, and that's all done. Now you can start to wind it down. Okay, so once the trailer is fully connected to the car, you shouldn't move anything anywhere. In fact, really, you shouldn't be removing your front landing legs until this point. But because my drive is so angled, I've got no choice. The removal of the landing leg should really be one of the last jobs, and they should only be dropped sufficiently that the trailer can be moved up or down at the front. Anyway, now we've got these security chains, and these security chains are very important. A lot of people don't know how to use them. They come out once at each side. I've wrapped them round the wrong way so that they can stay in this hole. But there's two theories about these chains, and I'll tell you the way I like to do it, and I'll tell you the reason why I like to do it. So I take this one, which is hanging off the right hand side of the trailer as you look at it, and I put it on the opposite side of the car. And then I take the one that's going the other side, which is on the left hand side of the trailer, and I put that on the right hand side of the car. Now the reason for this is if these two come disconnected, the chains come tight and they cross slightly, supporting the front of the nose of the trailer, the drawbar of the trailer, so that it doesn't all dig in the ground quite so much. Now these can be longer or shorter. I would prefer them a little shorter because I like them to come up here about this long, but for lots of different reasons I've never actually shortened the lengths, which is a job that I should get on with. Now the other thing that's important to remember is that this hitch is adjustable. Now you can see that I've got a spare hole at the bottom and a couple at the top. We've adjusted this because this is what we used on the Range Rover, but the back of the Land Rover isn't quite the same height. And this needs to be dropped because the trailer, the caravan, is just ever so slightly high at the front when it's on level ground. And if Taryn zooms back now, if she walks back onto the grass, you will see that even though it's connected and at the proper height, even where at the proper height, the back of the trailer is ever so slightly low compared to the nose of the trailer. And so it's important that this pairing has got to be slightly lower at the nose so that you're putting the weight of the trailer on the drawbar. Your drawbar needs a bit of weight. If you have the trailer like that, then every time it bounces, it's going to bounce the trailer away from the tow hitch and try to pull the back of the Land Rover up. It's part of the improperly loaded trailer story. Next thing, if Taryn comes forwards here, the next thing that we apply is the power cable. This power cable has a notch in it, as you can see, and so this keyway sort of affair, that has to go into the trailer socket in the same orientation. So this notch has to fit into this groove like that. And then this catch here holds it in place. This cable puts the brakes on when the trailer becomes disconnected from your car. Now this should not fasten around this chain, because if this breaks, so does this. And what you need this to do is you need this to pull the pin out of this little control unit, which Taryn can't see, and so this has to be connected to the car. So this, I then poke through this hole here, like that, and then using this D-link or whatever you want to call it, I clamp it together. Normally you could screw this if you wanted to, depending upon your hitch, you could screw this into here, but it's important this, for obvious reasons, doesn't drag on the ground. Now that, if this comes disconnected, or if this comes disconnected, or if the trailer hitch comes disconnected from here, this snaps off and pulls your brakes on. Now the last bit of the thing, I'm going to come around here, is this. This is your Reese anti-sway bar, and this is one of the most important parts of the towing facility. Now you have to set this up when you first get it into a position of tightness, so this handle comes undone, as you can see, on or off, and the more you wind it on, the tighter it gets and the harder it is to move, and obviously as you slack it off, the looser it is and the easier it slides. This fits onto the trailer, between the trailer and the tow vehicle, and it constrains the movement of the trailer articulating on the tow hitch. You fasten one side here and the other side on the trailer. Now in order to get that to match nicely, undo the thing. That's one turn, two turns, now it's slidey. So you can pin this so that doesn't come off, and then you put this onto the frame of the trailer so that doesn't come off, and then you pin that. This is where Stephen hurts his fingers. And then you have to remember to tighten this up. That was 2 turns. Oh, sorry, 1 turn. Sorry, yeah, 2 turns. There's 1. And that's my setting. Now, setting this will require a bit of messing around. If you have it too tight, it squeaks and you can feel it binding. If you have it too loose, it doesn't actually work. The last thing is to make sure that all the landing legs are wound up and your chocks are taken away. And then your vehicle is connected. Now I should just mention, and didn't, that when you fold this latch down to lock the trailer on, you need to put a pin through that hole there to stop it coming undone. I use my trailer lock. So now your vehicle is fully connected. As you look back, you can see the trailer is a little low at the back because I need to adjust that, the angle. And you can see that because of the way I've mounted the curb, my back wheel is up a bit in the area. But otherwise, I obviously haven't wound this leg up because I'm going to be putting it back down. This is only for purposes of a demonstration. But you can see here that one of the downsides to the Land Rover Defender is exactly how close this wheel is to the gas tanks at the front, the propane tanks. And that's problematic if you have some articulation up and down, and there's not much you can do about that in North America. We had considered removing these tanks and splitting them to put one either side of the battery on the outside of the drawbar, but the insurance company didn't like that, so it wasn't done. And I just wanted to briefly mention to you the 2 trailer locks that I've got. So this is the first one. This is my pin lock, and so this fits just like a fake sort of fake ball, really, I suppose you'd call it. And then with the keys, you sort of slide this lock in and that's locked. And then the second lock I have is the hitch lock, and this hitch lock goes through this pin, or I suppose you could call this a pin lock, couldn't you, really? And then this one's a bit harder to operate because you've got, again, I've 2 hands and I've only got 1. I'll see if I can just bend this far enough so you can see. Oh yeah, it's not too bad, is it? And so you just slide this in, unlock it, make sure this slides in there, and then lock it up like that, and then that stops you opening this. Now there's no way to actually stop folk from stealing a trailer. If they want it, but this does help. So I'm hoping that's going to be an helpful video for you, especially I've seen as I've had a lot of questions about towing trailers and the like. If you are going to tow a travel trailer in North America, it is important that when you select your travel trailer, or if you've got a travel trailer, you are mindful of how that spare tyre gets in the way when you're sort of, you know, connecting the trailer to the Land Rover. You should always maintain. I dropped my the legs of the jacks on the trailer. I dropped them far earlier than I would normally do. The protocol normally for backing up to a trailer, assuming that it's on the level, is that you would back up to the trailer like I did, and then use the suspension to connect the trailer to the hitch before you lower the landing legs at all, and that way the Land Rover will stop the trailer from moving about if the legs, you know, if the legs are removed, allowing the trailer to roll sort of freely. If you're in the same boat that I am, it's very important to chock the trailer front and backwards to stop the trailer from sort of rolling while you're doing these sorts of adjustments. Weight distribution hitch. You need the hitch to operate the sway bar, or at least you can buy a sway bar attachment for your hitch anyway, but don't use the weight distribution part of it. That confuses the suspension and the automatic tow assist technology on the Land Rover and negatively affects your towing stability. Always make sure you change a crossed underneath and fully secured before you move off. That also goes for the brake chain or the brake cable, emergency brake cable, and of course your lights. I didn't show you checking the lights and the operation of the lights, but that is something that you should do every time you connect the trailer and before you move off. But that goes without saying. You do need to be aware that if you are backing your Land Rover up using the fancy tow assist camera, that if you've moved the hitch into a position that's good enough to let you open the back door on the Land Rover, then that might affect the way in which the trailer looks as you use the camera to back the ball under the hitch. There's nothing you can do about that really, and you will need to hang your hitch further out from the Defender bumper than would be advisable really, or would be preferable, in order to make sure that the back door opens in some way whatsoever, so you can get your hands in to use the air suspension. Otherwise it's a bit of a struggle. It is really, as it stands, it's actually quite hard for my dog to get in and out of the back of the Land Rover where the gas bottle is where it is, and you may need to make some adjustments to the front of the trailer like we have by moving that landing leg and the trailer jack. Anyway, there you go. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to have another piece of my fancy cake now because I can, and I'm just going to have a slurp of tea. I did have a gentleman tell me he didn't like the fact that I drank tea. Oh, I've gone out of view. He didn't like the fact that I drank tea while I was doing my videos. And I am sorry that offended him. But I'm just a man with a Land Rover, and you can't take the tea very far away from the Derbyshire one, so tea's a must. Right, thank you very much. See you next video. Cheerio!